Hey now, and how are you doing? Want to welcome you to the next episode of Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat. Today, we're going to be really educated today, as we always are during every episode. My new friend, Eva. Eva, I'd love you to introduce yourself. How are you doing today first?
I'm doing fantastic. Enjoying the weather in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I can imagine. I heard the rains have stopped for a little while. And last night I was talking to my friend in Los Angeles in Hacienda Heights, and he
Yeah.
goes, his garden has really blossomed because you had a lot of rain earlier in the year. And then now he's things that are normally like an inch just at the starting of the growing. He goes, he has full Brussels sprouts and all these other amazing vegetables that he takes care of. So it's just a great time to be in LA.
For once. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, a little bit about me.
Sure.
So I'm a spiritual alchemist, and that means that I take the wisdom and the science of today and the ancient mystery of yesteryear, and I combine them together for healing. So I've done for many years now, worked on reversing adrenal burnout. That's been what I've become
Mm.
known for. But it's expanded into this other realm, which is more emotional around boundaries and the fact that, ah, chronic illness is related to our emotional state.
Yeah, no, that's great, and that's what we want to talk about, the alchemy. But how'd you get into it, right? We all work on a journey, and I'm sure you don't wake up when you were a little girl saying this is what's going to happen, though you might have had intuitive feelings that way.
Yeah, I remember as a child just having a lot of interests, a lot of different interests and things, but I've always wanted to help people. So if somebody had a cut or a scrape, it's like I was the one getting out the band-aids.
Mm.
But as I aged, you grow into the what does society need me to be in order to live in the world? And I didn't have a purpose that was already defined or a passion necessarily other than to help people. It wasn't until much later that I received that spiritual tap on the shoulder that brought me to the road where I'm at now. But what started the journey was chronic illness. So I mentioned, yeah, chronic illness is definitely related to how we think about our emotions. And for me, it started as depression and it moved
Mm.
into autoimmune disorder and infertility and chronic fatigue, anxiety, insomnia, depression, fibromyalgia, itchy skin, heart palpitation, short-term memory loss, arthritis, the list goes on.
Wow,
I
that
go back
sounds like
to
fun. I can't imagine. And so, what did you do when those things started piling up? That's usually when people start breaking down even further, and you don't look like or sound that you're broken down now. So, what did you start doing originally to get you on this path?
it was a frustration of going to doctor after doctor who in turn all took the blood and read the results of the test and said, we don't see anything wrong with you. We think it's all in your head. And that was over the period of about 16 years of blaming my lifestyle and saying it's because you're stressed and you just moved and you just got married. Over the years, they would come up with what's going on in your life and they would try to apply the stress from that life happening into my history of my body's ability to heal itself. And I time out. Hold on. I'm not the only person on the planet who has life events happening. And not everybody is experiencing this level of difficulty with their health like I am. I was 28 by the time I was diagnosed with all of those things. And then there were more on top of that. And I remember my dad saying to me, Eva, you are way too young to have all of this problems. You'd like an 80-year-old. Yeah, that's exactly it. So me too. That's honest, but
Right.
it's
What
certainly
doesn't
helpful.
feel good for me either.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just pointing out a fact, and there was no help in sight, not from the traditional medicine avenues that I was taught to pursue.
So, how did you learn some of the methods at the beginning? Because again, I know we sometimes feel, or I was just talking to somebody earlier that they didn't want to come out to New York, and I go, stop looking at all the newspapers and things like that. Probably like LA. Stop looking at all the TV ads saying, "Oh, it's so hard, it's so dangerous." There are pieces. It's a different world that we're living in. So no matter where you go, you have those type of go watch the news at any city in America, you're going to see the same exact things. So you can either stay in your room and put your head underneath the pillow and move, or you manage it. So how did you start to manage it and then hone in on the skills the alchemy that you did? Because I'm sure the first time you started finding resources were not all successful. You needed to fine tune.
Well, and some of the things were not successful because what I was trying to work on wasn't what my body needed to work on, which is a
Mm.
really important point. A lot of people think that health care and even emotional care means I work on and try to kill the symptom that is bothering me the most. And that's not always what your body's ready to work on. So I had to learn that. So you could be work. So if I were to give an example, sick. My grandmother, she passed away when I was, let's see, 2003. And I remember being at the funeral thinking I should be able to cry, looking around, unable to emote, like really hard in the
Mm.
body. And this was part of the healing journey. I was not aware of what was going on. Your awareness actually lowers. You become hardened. You become more difficult to, more, what do you call it? Not just stubborn, but like inflexible when you have too much of what I found to be a copper toxicity that creates all sorts of problems with calcium. So this wasn't, I didn't know any of this. I just experienced the symptom. And so what do? You go and get massages. Okay. That only feels good in the moment. But as soon as it was done, I would have the same stiffness almost immediately right after. And or it didn't last more than a day. So that's a little example is unable to emote, unable to process emotions, unable to actually let your body relax. And you try to do that by going after that, let me do things to relax my body. But I
Mm.
didn't know all of the other things that were in the way. And it wasn't until that 16-year journey ended. So the curiosity, to answer the question directly, I had to become very curious. And I started to search out solutions that aligned with my little inner child voice that said, if you give your body what it needs, it can heal itself. Now, this is a very Eastern thought. I didn't know that at the time. I wasn't raised in anywhere in the East. I was
Yeah.
raised in the West. So for me, it was go to the doctor when you have a problem. And they were all telling me I'm fine, which was not true. Since I was blessed with insomnia up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I put in a search string of all of the different symptoms that I had that I was aware of. And I came across this article that was describing how it would feel if you were living your life through a body that was imbalanced, full of toxic metals, full of viruses, possibly, that your immune system was poor. I was sick all the time. I had two kids that I raised on my own. And when the elementary school is a petri dish for the latest cold, like
Sure. Yeah.
yeah. And I was constantly sick. I'm like, geez, is this ever going to end? And I would have my annual lung infection that I would go to when you lose your voice. I'm like, gee, this is stupid. This is ridiculous. No, could not eat a lot of foods. I had a lot of food allergies. I was down to 10 things, lettuce, lemon, like that was a really
Right.
small amount.
Water, bread and water, and probably
Yeah,
not
yeah.
bread because that might affect the celiac or something like that. Yeah.
Well, celiac is definitely something you're born with, where I developed a sensitivity. So not necessarily an allergy. And
Okay.
I've had to learn all of this myself too and go, okay, not everything's an allergy because an allergy means you go to anaphylactic shock. Fine, fine. But if you have a problem digesting something and processing it, it almost feels like you're going to die, really. So all of that I was able to reverse, but it took some time. And that article was really the key because it was telling me, look, if you give your body what it needs, it can heal itself. Oh, Bing, that's exactly what it was that I was thinking. And the next logical question that came to my mind was, how do you know what you need? And they had a way to determine that, to take the guesswork out of everything.
Okay, so they had a way to do it. How did you do it? So you by researching, and that's what we really want to hear is not what they told you, who's they, but I want to hear about you, how you, because not everything they told you was right. And
Well, now when it comes to this work from this article, everything that I was able to apply from this science, and it's called mineral balancing science. It's been around for it was researched for more than 50 years by Dr. Paul X. This body of work, it does work if you work it, but it cannot be in isolation.
mm,
So you can't just take your supplements and just get a good night's sleep. There's a whole, you have to process. You have to learn what to do with your emotions when they come up. You have to understand how to build boundaries, how to have terms now. There's things that you're not taught as a child, how to manage your own stress, then everything upsets you.
yep. Yeah, if you don't learn how to balance it and manage it. That's really again another conversation I had earlier today was about emotional intelligence, and it's really about understanding what's your triggers and working it out differently, or fixing it using your alchemy. Fixing sounds like we're broken, but we're not. Sometimes our learnings were not right, and we need to
Yeah.
modify the learnings we have. There's a lot of pieces to it. It's more than just, hey, I'm a broken person, and I don't think anybody's broken. A kaleidoscope has pieces that fit together. A mosaic fit has pieces that fit together that become something even more beautiful than it was when when it had the pieces apart.
You can even think of it as a progression, just the same way that we went through school. So you start in kindergarten. You don't end there.
Kindergarten,
So,
yeah,
so just what they taught us in kindergarten was right for the time and the age, and for our brain to be able to accept it and address it and use it. And as we leave kindergarten, we go into first grade, we learn something new, and we go, oh, wait a minute, I learned it a different way in kindergarten. Yes, this is better now that you're older, and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
And that's really something that's not taught well. It's not passed down where it's supposed to be taught, is from parent to child. And somehow we've missed the mark in society. And my belief is that we have a scourge of codependency running amok amongst us, and a lack of emotional intelligence that we don't even know is a problem.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so as you started learning the resources, like, continue us on our journey.
Yeah, I
So,
had to open up the mind first. So I had to stop looking at all of my symptoms as my pain, right? So I had a lot of pain, physical pain. The fibromyalgia was big, and they told me there was no cure for that. And getting onto something that balances my minerals and got rid of the toxic metals that was causing the fibromyalgia and the itchy skin and the heart palpitations and all of these other things, hypothyroidism, all of this issue that was making me focus on my physical body and making me unable to work and unable to take care of my children very well, had to be little by little healed. So this work, I realized the difference between doing mineral balancing work versus the latest fad diet or this trendy supplement that somebody said I should take now because it's new on the market. Like, this work worked 100% to resolve the issue. It didn't work halfway. It didn't stop working if I stopped working. It solved the problems as I went along. And that list of 30 different symptoms dwindled down over the years. And it's, you spend your life building up these problems, you're not going to get over them overnight. So that healing, I spoke of my grandmother. The very first healing reaction I had was 2 weeks after I started this work, giving my body the minerals that needed. And very interestingly, I had a healing of grief. My body had been holding on to that grief, and it was causing so much stress response that I could not relax. And that buildup, and that's not the only thing that happened. That this is not in an isolation. It's a lifelong lived of a lot of stressful situations, like the doctors had mentioned, but they didn't help me. They wanted to dismiss it and go, your life is this way, so you're going to experience these
right.
problems. They didn't have a solution. So the solution was to just give my body what it needed based on the mineral science. And once that started the ball rolling, I kept doing it. And you get more and more of a motivation to do deeper work. And the deeper work is that emotional stuff, but you have to have the emotional space to do it.
Yeah, that again, recent conversations. I'm like, when am I going to be done with the emotional stuff? Every time you think you're good, you're like, nope, there's a new layer. Welcome to today. But it's so great because it's refreshing. And when I talk to people about it, you also have to look at where you were and where you are now. So think about where you're going to go and what's that going to take you to that next level. So as you're going through your alchemy and you're starting to get through some of your health conditions through your mind and working through it, what else went on?
Other than the physical symptoms starting to disappear and noticing, in school, I was one of those top performers. They say the cream always rises at the top. I took the AP courses, I took college credits. I did all that stuff in school. I was very good at just the academic stuff, not necessarily street smarts, but academics. I could pass any test, put it in front of me. And I thought, one night, again, I'm up and with insomnia still, because that took a while. That took a while to resolve. But I thought, oh, I came across an emotional intelligence test. And I thought, ACE test is pretty easy. Let me take this and I'll see how I do. Man, I scored so low, I was humbled. Boom. And I went,
Nice.
oh, let me see what's going on. So my curiosity about from the results led me to understand that I had so much more to learn and how to not just manage emotions, but to be authentic and
Mm.
how to present yourself and how to present your argument and how to negotiate and how to not give up yourself for the sake of another, which most of us do. We do that all the time.
Yeah.
We forget ourselves to make somebody else happy, and we forget that we're not responsible for their emotions. So these are the things that I had to learn. I had to learn all of that. Isn't that this is stuff we were supposed to learn as children, to believe in ourselves, to understand we have intuition, right? But we're shut down more often than not.
Or shut down because society does that. And also sometimes our parents they don't have the resources. Yeah, as I heard you say, you're a parent, they don't really give us a workbook, right? It's not, okay, let's go do this. And based on where you're at, like right now, I'm probably the best parent I've ever been in my life. That doesn't mean I was a bad parent beforehand, but I meet them where they're at. I didn't understand any of that. For a long time, I personally understood I'm the parent, it's my rules. And instead of explaining to them a lot better, a lot clearer, and I think that goes. I see you laughing. Yeah, I think that's the part of the emotional intelligence we have to treat not only our kids but our all of our relationships. Is saying, hey, you upset me. This is what I'm hearing or seeing, because that's where the lack of communication, the lack of power comes in on both sides. If you're really in a relationship, and including business relationships, when things don't work out, you need to be able to sit down and have those conversations. So it sounds like you started learning. Not only that, I'd really like to get back into the minerals. So how do you know what minerals to take? Obviously, there's again a million articles. How do you know the right ones? We don't want to just start taking chances.
That's just it. Yeah. Even you can find doctors who offer mineral balancing science, and it's done with a hair test. So you want to find a practitioner who's certified to analyze the work, because a lot of doctors, chiropractors, naturopaths are like, I'm smart. I can just go to any lab and get a hair test done and read the result like I would a blood test. The problem with that is, like what happened for me, I hired a naturopath in 2004, 5, something like that, to try to help. He read the results like a blood test. So it was low on manganese, for example. And he goes, oh, you're just low in manganese. People who are low in manganese, they want to eat their young. And I'm like, that makes sense. But taking just manganese by itself didn't solve my wanting to eat my young. And because that's not how you read it, it's the opposite. So when you're testing a biopsy of hair, you're testing what your body is getting rid of, not what is inside of it. And that's something that a lot of
Mm.
very smart people who think they can analyze it on their own don't realize. That you need someone like me who's been trained in this. I've been doing this for 14 years and I'm still learning. So you want someone who has an ongoing database of experience with it, who can interpret it properly. So that's the big difference between just going and saying, I want to test. No, you don't. You want somebody who knows how to apply it to you. And that made the difference between getting worse, which I did with this one doctor, versus many years later. It was at least 6 years later when I finally found a certified practitioner, because I dismissed it. I said, well, hair analysis doesn't work.
Sure.
They did it wrong. If they do it right, then guess what? I'm a whole new me. You mentioned, like, I'm 50. I look better now than I did 20 years ago.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought you, again, being able to see. I know some of the people will be able to see you and some people will not. I would have figured much a smaller number, a lower number,
Lower, yeah.
a lower number.
Yeah. So it really does matter who you listen to when it comes to regards to this particular process. And it's where I start most of my clientele, because they'll come to me with complaints. And it's interesting, of course, emotional states and abusive relationships. And I'm also an advocate for battered women. So having that knowledge of how to coach someone around, are you safe? What's going on? What do we need to do? All of that I have. But in addition to that, there's spiritual aspects to take care of. If you have something going on in your mind that allows for shame, guilt, fear, more than likely you could have an attachment of some kind.
Sure.
And churches will call this a demonic possession. So I perform exorcisms at times. And sometimes people think, they go, oh, I think I have a demon in me. No, you just have a copper imbalance. So it can feel like it. So it's good to have somebody who's aware of the entire spectrum of health that can guide you, as opposed to just staying in their little itty bitty lane. No, you want the whole deal.
And you want somebody to sometimes observe because one of my friends who's a pastor, he goes, so many people come up to me and they go, God is coming to me. I know it is. And they go, sometimes it's just indigestion, much like your chopper, and they go,
Yes.
just wait a little bit, have a drink, and then see, have some water, and then see if that feeling is still there. That's where we sometimes follow our passions so quickly, and being able to slow down our thinking and analyzing it a little bit is also really helpful.
Oh, so helpful. And I've noticed I've been working with individuals who are both narcissists and also those who are suffering with PTSD, because a lot of that they go to it's the
There's a
same
there's a lot
coin,
of stuff
different
that you
side.
go through that it
Yeah.
becomes a call out. This narcissism is different levels, and I'm not an expert on it, but a lot of it comes from the trauma because you need to be heard, or you needed to be heard
Yes.
then, and
Yes.
that's where some of the power comes from.
And I've watched the beautiful journey of self-development with individuals who come out of that narcissism and the comments. I'm not Dr. Filling it, right? So this is not, this is what you need to do. I hear them go, you mean not everybody is just giving me enough to get what they want out of me in return? I said, no, some people are just being nice. It was an eye-opening moment. And so when you have that emotional space and the safety to open up and look at that,
Right.
now you have to learn how to process. And so processing, especially PTSD, I've discovered a beautiful path. People get very confused with, why am I thinking about this old memory? Why am I? Because you're a different person now, and energetically, vibrationally, that memory doesn't fit with you. You've got to reprogram your
Yeah,
memory.
for sure.
And so I teach them how to do that. And it's just an ongoing process of, like you said, it's always something. But once you learn the tool, then when you are faced with that thing again, just like your friend walking down the street, you recognize it and you go, I know what to do. I remember Eva told me.
Yeah, no, and that's what it comes down to. Once we know our inner child, what's affecting us, we can then communicate it. And then that's part of the magic that I work with is, let's talk to that inner child. Let's see what the inner child really needs, because we know what we need in most cases. And again, there are definitely cases where you need different layers and different professionals and things like that. But for the most part, you can have a conversation knowing what you need and get that released from you, within you, and then that becomes the bigger change in life.
Yeah, you become somebody different. And it's a little bit and a little bit. And I love the personal development and the spiritual journey because we are coming closer and closer to the whole being that we are in reality, like the true eternal being that we are. And the closer that we are to that, the more this experience becomes richer.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, once you put on the right glasses, you're able to see through the filters, and the colors become that much more richer. I would agree. And even your visions. That's why I just came out with a hat line called Trust the Vision, God's Plan. And you might not believe in God, people might not believe in God. That's okay. But it's still the vision that you have. And when you trust that vision, it is part of a larger plan, a
Yeah.
universal plan, the plan, whatever you want to call it. And only you get to see it. But when you start removing some of those filters that might have not allowed you to see how beautiful things could be, that's where the magic comes in.
Yeah, true magic. And this is part of when I get on stage to talk with audiences about their rights, roles, and responsibilities as a human being. They don't realize that they're the magic. The body is what allows them to be the magic. And that's why it's so important. If we lose touch with that, the ability to manifest, the ability to get in touch with our higher self, the ability to process our own emotions and discover, am I speaking to my own higher self, or am I speaking to some demonic thing that's trying to control me? It's like learning all of that discernment is important. You want to protect this human body
Right.
because that's what demons are after. So, anyways, it's all about being sovereign, in my little opinion.
Sure,
So,
you got to know yourself. Because if you could know yourself as good, again, your inner child. That's why when I talk about Ho'oponopono, it's all that healing within ourselves.
yeah,
Because from ourselves, then we act differently. Years ago, that's exactly what I was told. Sometimes you need to be the change in a community, your house, right? It doesn't have to be. If you're the calm one, everybody then becomes calmer. They feed off your energy, and by your actions, by your emotional intelligence and working through the challenges and knowing how to manage, not manipulate, but manage the situation for yourself, you then
Yeah.
really guide people to manage it for themselves, and they learn their own resources as well.
Mhm.
They mirror those resources.
If they work. And so that's the thing is you want to be an example for yourself. You're doing the work for yourself, not so much so you can stand up in front of a crowd and go, look what I did. But
Not at
isn't it
all, yeah.
great to be what others aspire to be? And if you can be that, I think that's beautiful.
Okay. The biggest thing that I think you just heard, if they work. So you have to also have that emotional intelligence to know what is not working. Not, hey, this is what I've been doing. This is what my parents were done, my grandparents, it's the generational, this is what we do. It's okay to question or look at yourself. Is it really working for you? Notice that.
Well, and I've discovered, just like I mentioned earlier in the beginning, so emotional healings are much the same way as the physical healings and the spiritual healings. They all work the same way. The system is the same. If you run after spiritual problems and play whack-a-mole with, I need to balance my chakras, I need to make sure that my auric field is okay, or I need to go get some Reiki done. Well, or I need a soul retrieval. How do you know what order to do them in? If you have somebody who's familiar with all of those practices and knows the alchemy work and can read the energy, then now you're not playing whack-a-mole, you're holistically changing the environment of your soul body. And that's more valuable than same thing with the physical stuff. You can go after your thyroid and take the thyroid pill for your life, or you can fix it, you can reverse it, you can get your glands working properly. So it's that, what's the environment that's allowing for you to be the way that you're being? Look at that instead of the problem. Be the observer. Yeah.
That's the best way to do it, is be the observer rather than the solver. Because when you're observing, you can still solve, but by observing, you then also can see the bigger picture, have that larger
Yes.
vision.
Yes.
Okay. So I know we're running up on about a half hour or so on the show, and that's where we usually. I'd like you to walk into my magic garden, and I would like you to plant a seed of knowledge that that either we can use now, some resources maybe, or something that we can have where we plant and then it grows grows within our audience.
I think it's a great seed. I like Carl Jung's quote, until we make the unconscious conscious, rather, we will call it, we will be ruled by it and call it fate. And I think the more time we spend in curiosity, the better, as opposed to judgment of this is wrong and I want to fix it or kill it or get rid of it. Let's be curious about it, expand what we know into something that is collaborative instead of something that is divisive. And that would be a little seed I would like to leave.
That's awesome. Thank you. Is there anything else that we need to know, including where to reach you? I want to make sure that we've shared. I know we can't share everything that you do, but I don't want to also leave anything that you feel like, oh, I want to share. I don't know how, but also make sure that we know where to contact you and how to contact you.
I like to make it really simple. So I have a website and it's the elevateinstitute.com. And on that page, on any of the pages, you'll find a start here button, and you click on that and you have an option to speak with me for free, because I don't expect you to know everything that I do and then pick and choose. So I want to listen. I want to hear what you're going through. I want to hear what's going on for you and around you. And then I'll be able to put together a program that works, that fits your needs, as opposed to telling you this is a one size fits all, because it's not. Our solutions are just as unique as a thumbprint. So I invite you for that phone call. If I can't help you, I will find somebody or make a reference to somebody who might be able to better. And that's what I promise, is that free. I'll listen to you. People don't get heard very often anymore.
Yep. No, exactly. And I appreciate it. And I appreciate hearing you today as well as everything else. And so is there anything else that you want to share with us before we?
No, I'm
Okay.
just really glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure we can go deeper, and maybe we will go deeper, and you'll come back on at another time,
It'd be my
or
pleasure.
we'll do some
Yeah.
collaborations. And everybody else, as always, find peace and love in your life, because when you do, you're able to ground yourself in a way that's so magical. And when you're bringing a bat, make sure it's always to hit the sweet spot and being authentic as we talked about earlier in this episode, be authentic today and always. Thank you, and God bless.